Hi, I'm Wes, the Explosion, and this is the Backlog. As projected, I got through the rest of Ori and the Blind Forest. I went back and forth on whether I love or hate this game. 1 second, I'd be weaving through spikes on a draft of wind, just a hair from death, throwing myself at the obstacle course with its hard to pin down controls over and over again. The next, I'd be traipsing through an old area and using my new abilities to access new parts of it for upgrades. Then, back to having to use the damn bashing move to maneuver a ball 4 times my size through tight spaces with death lasers. Then back to another section that utilized the skills I accumulated to feel like I was really getting better and progressing. Ultimately, things kind of ended on a sour note, with some of the last puzzles I had to face feeling more unwieldy than clever, and an escape sequence that had a lot of places to screw up, and I'd have to start all over again when I did. I also kinda hated how it seemed like no matter how much life I seemed to get, the spikes would always kill me in 2 hits. When I had 8 health, it would do 4 damage, making me wonder what the point was to collecting the upgrades when 5 health would serve me just as well. Then I got my 9th health bubble and was able to enjoy the 3 hit limit for a brief time before going into the next area where the spikes did 5 damage, and thus my frustration began anew. I guess it was better than making spikes an insta-death like almost every other platformer out there, but when I did take that much damage in 1 hit, I kinda wanted to restart anyway, so maybe that would have been better, at least for me. My final death counter was 505, which was more than Cyber Shadow, though here a good number were self-destructs due to me wanting to restart. I also think this was more than my last Cuphead playthrough, though come to think of it. The game had some pretty high points for me, which were balanced out by some pretty low lows, with things unfortunately ending on more of the latter, so that does dampen my thoughts and opinion on the game a good bit. However, since there were some truly fun parts in the game, if I ever get enough knocked off my backlog, I might give the sequel a look, though I am glad to be done for now. Another thing worth noting is that I only played it on the normal difficulty, so if I made the game sound like too much of a pain, perhaps easy would have made the game more palatable, so despite my grumpy take, I wouldn't discourage anyone from giving this game a try. A friend and I also finished up playing Donkey Kong Country 3 on Switch Online. This time Donkey and Diddy get kidnapped, so despite the name, you play as Dixie Kong and Kiddy Kong instead. The platforming is back, along with all the collectibles, an assortment of animal pals, and several other members of the Kong family. Wait, are they all related? These games are starting to feel a little incestuous. Of course, they are different species of monkey, ape, and gorilla, so they all shouldn't be blood relations, but did Nintendo and Rare know this when laying down the canon? You know what, let's just ignore this for now. This game has a more unique feel to it than the other 2 titles, the first being Donkey Kong Country, the second being Donkey Kong Country but pirate themed. Rather than just recycling a lot of the same elements but with a themed reskin, most of the enemies and areas seem completely redesigned, even when they seem to function the exact same way. The world map also feels less linear, you getting different watercraft to traverse it, getting items to upgrade your vehicle choices, and you being able to explore more for secrets. And at least once, the game will give you the option to choose the order in which you tackle some of the areas. I'd say the game is somewhere between 1 and 2 in terms of difficulty. The first game being challenging but pretty doable with a bit of persistence, the second at times throwing complete horseshit that you need to throw yourself at again and again until you get it just so perfect. This one starts you out at a nice, reasonable pace and ends with them throwing new, difficult mechanics that are super frustrating, such as partially reverse controls, sentient lightning that you have to bait and maneuver around perfectly, and enemies that will bulldoze you to insta-death if you do not tread around, also perfectly. And what's with that one boss that uses the optional minigame controls for his fight that seems to last 2 or 3 times longer than what it feels like it should? While I beat these games legitimately back on the Super Nintendo when I played it with my brother as a kid, here I had no qualms about using save states. Maybe it would have been better if we had done our sessions closer together so that skill building stayed with us more, rather than just whenever we could both find time to hop online together weeks apart. But by the end, we were getting especially frustrated. There was one part in particular where my player 2 needed to step away to take something out of the oven, where I used some strategic save states to complete perhaps the worst level in the game, as seen here, all on my own, and I never received a complaint about tackling it without him. It really makes me wonder, given that I think I'm better at games now than I was when I was a kid, and yet that was when I was able to beat it without save scumming. It probably has to do with how I had less games back then, so I had more patience for trying the same stages over and over again, and also was able to play it more consistently. But I'm still a little envious at younger me's accomplishment. Either way, all 3 titles are up on the Nintendo Switch Online service and are worth playing if you can find the time. My favorite is still the second title, though given how just really unreasonable that one could be, I can't figure out why. Is it my love of Dixie Kong, or maybe Sticker Brush Symphony? Nostalgia probably has something to do with it. Maybe I should give it another look and try and figure it out at some point. And I picked up Dead Cells again. This is a roguelite, the dungeons you have to fight through being randomly generated every time, and you being able to accumulate some boost and weapons between runs. I started playing this game with a friend, switching up between runs. I put it down until he was around again to do some more attempts, and then he went and got his own copy, finishing it on his own. Who does that? Does our friendship mean nothing to him? I was mortified. So now I'm picking this game up again to hammer through on my own, and hopefully one day I'll get there. I need to relearn some of the mechanics, how to stack power-ups most efficiently, and just the basic rhythm and flow of the game, but stay tuned and perhaps I'll have a successful run to report at some point. One thing that is giving me a bit of trouble though is the paid DLC. You see, I don't have it. While I can't fault the developer for creating more levels or campaigns and asking for some extra cash for it, the way it's brought up in-game can be kinda troublesome. If there was an advertisement on the main menu, or even in the starting section of the game where you prep for your run, I wouldn't mind. However, instead, one of the patches that automatically downloaded makes it so that a side path generates in the dungeon that will take you to the paid content, and when you try to enter it, it will tell you that the DLC pack is available to purchase on the store, and helpfully suggest linking you there. I'm having a good time and there's a fair chance that I'll pick this up sometime down the line, but for now I just want to complete a regular run first. What this does for me is essentially generates an extra dead end for me to run into, and given that getting to the next area within a certain time nets you some pretty nice bonuses, it kinda feels like the game is trying to cajole me into spending some extra money so that I don't waste some extra time. It's a little annoying. And finally, I got through the second volume of bottom tier character Tomozaki. I'm still enjoying it, as I hope this volume greatly expanded upon one of the characters that didn't get as much screen time last book. While there were still some gaming metaphors, this one focused a lot more on the high school and socializing shenanigans, but I still felt very engaged, and it was another book that I liked enough to wrap it up in just a few settings. I also watched more of the anime, and yeah, while I wouldn't call it bad, I would still say that the story works better in text form. I have volume 3, so I'll probably continue on with this series before too long. Also, did anyone see that Metroid Dread trailer? It had huge spoilers, but the game does have me very intrigued. I was discussing this with a friend several weeks ago, and I suggested that the last Smash Fighter might be from Dread to promote the game, like they did with Fire Emblem Three Houses and Byleth. My best guess was an Emmy, though that seemed a little underwhelming and didn't feel right. If you watch the trailer, my new guess for the last fighter is that one guy. Not the big one, but the one that shows up pretty much immediately in the video. They seem like they could be a significant enough part of the Metroid lore to justify their inclusion, and it's way too late to update Samus with whatever new abilities they give her in this game, so if they could figure out a way to incorporate them into this new guy's moveset, they could show off some of what's new with Dread in front of a much larger audience. Just my prediction, so if it happens, I can say I called it. Please like and share so that I get proper credit, or embarrassment. That's another week down. I simultaneously feel like I finished a lot, yet not much at all, which is a little strange, but I have a free week starting today, so I should be productive coming up. Anyway, thanks for watching, maybe subscribe if you enjoy this sort of thing, and perhaps I'll see you in the next episode.